Meow everybody, Cantonese cat here. You ever notice where you're looking at your cat, if you own a cat, the cat kind of looks at you and judges you all the time? I'm kind of a little bit doing the same here. I'm looking at the posts that are over at X or Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, and there are a lot of people who got really frustrated about the recent minor action. They think it's just going to keep going up forever. And we got a down day like today with really not that bad for considering these are Bitcoin miners, really plus or minus 10 to 20% move a day is not really that big of a deal. But there seemed to be a lot of frustration, and this happens a lot when Bitcoin goes up and miners go down, and everybody's just looking at each other like, what the heck is going on? Well, guess what? Small cap also went down today. These things happen, and I think that for these miners, the couple of messages I want to kind of talk about. First of all, miners are stocks. They follow the general market. They're also small cap stocks, so they're going to follow small caps, right? It's just a part of the algorithmic trading that happens. Second of all, a lot of people don't ask any questions when, miners such as CleanSpark, as I'm showing the chart over here, they can go up like 10, 20, 30% a day and nobody asks any questions. And when Bitcoin only goes up maybe like 3% or 4% or 5%, nobody ever asks any questions on these crazy move up, right? They just think, oh yeah, I'm smart about the right stock at the right time. I'm going to make all these gains. Of course it was going to go up, right? The next thing you know, everybody starts freaking out when Bitcoin goes up like 7% like today. And you got CleanSpark drop down about 15%. These things happen all the time. Normal volatility for miners is plus or minus 10 to 20%. It happened here, it happened here, it happened here, and it just kept on happening throughout history, right? These things are really no big deal, and they are just a part of the volatility of Bitcoin miners. If you're going to buy something like that and you're expecting having gains, you also should also expect some, loss as well, because it's a very, very volatile stock. And the higher you buy, the more likely you're going to end up buying into risks, right? The lower you buy, the less likely you're going to end up having risk. Now, with that said, what I think is the most important is that trend matters more than price. Again, unless if you're trying to trade these individual tiny moves here and there, and when I say tiny, I'm talking about like 10 to 20% moves. Unless if you're like a ninja cat, if you will, trying to go in and out and trying to snipe, trying to get, all these little tiny moves right. To me, I think it's more important to look at the greater trend, right? This is the daily chart of CleanSpark, ticker symbol CLSK. What I'm seeing here since really throughout the year of 2023, I see it keep making higher lows and higher highs, higher lows and higher highs. Here, arguably it's like an equal low, right? But here's a little bit of higher low and higher high, higher low, higher high. Guess what? Higher low, higher high. Right now it's still a higher low. In a bull market, that's what it does. It goes up, passes certain resistance level, and then a lot of times it goes back down and back test it, pass, and it keeps going up, right? Well, guess what just happened? There's a volume shelf over here. These volume shelves, so basically they're telling you the volume of the price where it traded hand the most. So if the volume for these particular prices have been traded hand the most, usually there's a lot of memory at these levels, and usually they tend to have a lot more supply and demand at these levels, and these levels generally can serve as either strong resistance or strong support. What happened over here was that the price over the last couple of weeks went inside of this volume shelf over here. Now, it broke above this volume shelf pretty impulsively, right? And it went inside of this volume shelf right about right here. Bounced around, ranges around, had a breakout. Everybody's like, oh yeah, it's going to keep going higher. It probably will. All it did so far is just, yes, it had a breakout, had a little tiny volume shelf up here, didn't have enough energy, went back up there, and then went down. Back testing this breakout. This is pretty bullish behavior if you put it in context. Everybody focuses on the price, but I think a lot of people forget about the trend. Everybody focuses on the fact that it went down 14% on the day when Bitcoin went up, but I think everybody forgot how far along it came, really just since just a couple of weeks ago. This is not unexpected behavior for Bitcoin miners. Matter of fact, things are looking pretty decent. Now, there is a potential that it could go down further, right? And in terms of how much further, I don't know. I mean, it did test the top of the volume shelf here, which generally is, I would consider that to be, pretty decent support. It doesn't have to go all the way back down to the bottom of the volume shelf to test it. I would imagine this is pretty decent support where we're at right now. Could it go down further? Sure. I think this whole range right around here at this volume shelf is going to be pretty decent support. And I don't look at daily much, right? But I just want to show you that the daily to me doesn't matter, but if anything, it tells me that this trend is getting pretty strong. If anything, it tells me that this whole thing is starting to become, I'm going to say the word. This whole trend started to become parabolic. It's you can start drawing these parabola. Everybody's going to be scared. Like, how far is this parabola going to go before it starts crashing down? Well, if you look at lower time frame, it's going to be hard for you to tell, right? I don't look at the daily as much. I mostly look at weekly. I look at monthly. And to look at it weekly and look at a monthly, it already tells me a lot of information. Basically, if you look at the monthly, the volume shelf is right here. You see very similar information that you see on the daily, but less noise, right? This is a pretty strong parabolic move. And the great thing about it is also on parabolic volume too, which is insane. It can go higher. I think it probably will. And I'll show you why that is in a second. I think it probably will go higher. I'm going to ignore pretty much everything before 2020 for the clean spark chart, because before that it really isn't even like a miner anyway. So I'm really going to focus more like up here, down here, and up, right? You can see that the trend is really changing pretty rapidly. I don't really have to even show you any like fancy indicators and things like that. I guess a lot of people are afraid to buy a parabola because when it crashed down, it crashed down hard, right? But I don't know when the parabola is going to stop. Just like over here, I don't know when the downtrend was going to stop. I mean, this whole thing right here actually is another, parabola, but just on the opposite side. Like, I don't know when this thing is going to stop. So why the heck am I going to try to time when this thing is going to stop, right? I think it's still early. The reason why I say that is because if you look at the indicator that I like to look at a lot, which is the Bollinger Bands, and the Bollinger Band gives you a basis, and this is a monthly chart, so that's going to be a 20-month moving average. The trend just changed from bearish to bullish on the monthly trend 3 to 4 months ago. This is when the trend changed, right there. This just happened. The Bollinger Band just squeezed about 3 or 4 months ago, and it bounced from the 20-month moving average, and it's been riding up along the upper Bollinger Band since, right? This is a beginning of a monthly bull trend. Just like over here, I think it's a beginning of, confirmation of the beginning of a pretty drastic downtrend that's going to last for over a year. I mean, over here, it looks like it's the beginning of a bull trend. Bollinger Band just expanded recently, and it just over the last couple months or so, the lower Bollinger Band just dropped down to the floor recently. It's probably going to end up doing that for quite some time. Another thing to show you is the Ichimoku cloud. we saw something that's very, very, very bullish here, which is that on the monthly chart, there's a Tenkan line here and there's a Kijun line here. When these two cross, generally it's a pretty sustainable bull market that can last for like 18 to 24 months potentially. It may not be that bullish this time, who knows, right? It might cut short. Parabolic moves always can potentially cut short, right? But I think we might just be beginning here. The price is probably just starting to get a little bit more impulsive here. I think we might just be beginning. Now, it's hard for me to show you the history of CLSK because it really wasn't a minor before. I think it was before December 2020. I'm going to show you the very similar things that I normally see. I'm going to show you with Bitcoin, right? Oh, yes. What happens when the Tenkan cross above the Kijun? Parabolic move. What happens when the Tenkan crosses above the Tenkan? Parabolic move for months and months and months, not end. Hey, Bitcoin just had its cross last month. Guess what? This is a follow through, right? Now, this just, oh, okay, sorry. While I'm in the Bitcoin chart, I also want to show you another thing too, the bull in Japan, right? Down here, all the way down here, right? Trending up, right? We might be like, this might be the candle that we're seeing right now, right? Trending up, it could potentially have some pretty brutal correction, doesn't matter. Again, trend matters more than price. If you want to try to capture the majority of this parabolic move, trend matters more than price, right? The 20-month moving average just started ticked up around here for a few months, right? Look at how long our run rate just kept going up like that, right? There's a parabola here, it got broken, and then guess what? It formed a higher parabola on a higher time frame. It just kept going up because the higher time frame trend is up until it isn't, until it starts to really start to get exhausted, until the trend starts to get exhausted and you're starting to lose momentum here. Sorry about this junk right here. I like to leave things a little dirty sometimes. Clean spark. Going back to what I was talking about, I think we're at the beginning of a pretty powerful bull trend, supported by volume. Price is outside of upper bull in Japan, so what? Can come back correct a little bit. I don't care about price, I care about trend. I want to capture the majority of that parabolic move until the 20-month moving average start to really crawl down. And when I start to see a trend exhaustion, then I might question, hey, whether or not it's time to get out. This is not a time for me personally to want to get out at this time. I don't want you to listen to me. I want you to think for yourself. Can you handle these plus or minus 20% move a day? Is this cat showing you what he's showing you because he's completely biased? Can you think of examples where something like this happens and it doesn't work out? I don't want you to just listen to me. I want you to actually get on TradingView and actually look at these charts. Look at different charts of different tickers, spend a lot of times, look at thousands and thousands of charts and make your own decision, right? I'm showing you what I'm thinking. I got a position. I'm not going to sell it anytime soon. Matter of fact, I ended up buying a little bit more. I think that if you look back at the Ichimoku Cloud, it got rejected today, right? It went back up and it got rejected. It closed right underneath of it, which is fine. Like you don't expect things to break through the first time, actually, right? You're going to expect that you fight a battle. You're going to expect that there's going to be another battalion on the other side of key areas. I mean, that's just going to be the way it is, right? Matter of fact, earlier in the day, there's in addition to Ichimoku, you can also look at a very similar Ichimoku cloud called Super Ichi. It takes into account of more like a super trend. It also reached back out here and it got rejected. Earlier in the day, it was starting to like hover around here. It was trying to push up, couldn't do it, and then went back down, right? It just broke back down. Now, these are resistance above. You never expect things to go in a straight line. It just doesn't happen that way. It's going to get candles and candles and candles and candles and candles that break above clouds. But when you're not able to get further up, you want to find out what's underneath, right? You want to find out what could potentially be a good support level. Or you look at volume shelves, right? There's a pretty strong volume shelf right here that could serve as support. The top of the volume shelf is probably around like $18, $19, right? The bottom of the shelf, maybe around like $15.50. I think this area, this shaded area right here, is going to be potentially pretty strong support zone. And if it doesn't hold, it could break back down. Then you got another volume shelf around 13. I mean, I would not recommend you to necessarily go all in compared to down here. Down here I would probably be a little bit more interested in buying more. But up here, yeah, there's a lot more support levels down here. You figure out your risk tolerance and you figure out what you want to buy and put it down here. It doesn't matter to me though, because the trend's positive and you just have a pretty bullish cross right there. I think this is going to break through the cloud, into the cloud, probably over the next month or two. It looks pretty bullish to me so far, and there's so far in the higher time frame, I'm not really seeing the whole heck of a lot of warning signs. Sometimes these kind of, Kijun and Tenkan line, they can also potentially serve as support, just like how it serve as resistance over here, right? You can potentially serve as support too, and you can keep pushing the price higher. It's entirely possible, right? I think this is going to be the majority of things that I'll show you. The reason why that is a lot of times when things have kind of broke out like this, showing you the weekly may not give you too much information anymore. So if you look at the weekly Ishimoku cloud, it broke out from here, right? It's a pretty classic picture actually, if you look at it. Rejected from the cloud, rejected from the cloud. Trying to push into the cloud here, got some energy, did it for about a few weeks, finally pushed into the cloud, tested the bottom, tested the top, tested the bottom again, bounced to the top, down to the bottom. Really gave it some pretty nice testing here and there as resistance and support, right? It didn't even go down here to test support. I guess it just didn't need to. Right now, it's just kind of going up. Like this weekly trend is not going to show you too much anymore. It's a very, very bullish trend. It got a little bit rejected here from the volume shelf above, and it came back down to this volume shelf. These are very much expected price action. It's nothing crazy. It's negative 15% day. I don't know why anybody gets freaked out by it. Could this potentially be like a shooting star top and we just go all the way down? I mean, anything is possible. I don't want to say it's not. You could potentially have some pretty brutal correction going down here, right? Because it's Bitcoin. You never know. And this is a derivative of Bitcoin that could even be more volatile. You never know, right? But there's plenty of support down here, and there's plenty of support even within this range right here. I feel comfortable holding it because of what I'm seeing on the monthly. I think it's just going to be just fine. So bull market support band is another thing I like to look at. Could it potentially wait for a bull market support band to catches up before it goes up higher? Possible, right? There is a potential for you to want to hug the bull market support band as it goes up to go up higher. So it could potentially even range here for a few weeks. It's going to freak everybody out. I don't know why it would. I'm also not sure whether or not it's going to range here for a few weeks either. But it's plausible, right? Because there's a very, very upsloping bull market support trend. I don't really see any sign for this trend weakening, right? Not like here. I mean, you really started to see a trend that's weakening, right? And then when it's weakened enough, when the bull market support band is thin enough and when it's flat enough, it just attacks it, trying to backtest, fail, boom, right? I don't think we're anywhere near exhaustion here. I think this bull trend has just really started not long ago, and there could potentially be a lot more runway here. So this is CLSK. The problem with looking at CLSK is, again, there's not a whole lot of history here to look at. As a Bitcoin miner, I'm going to zoom out to Bitcoin, right? I'm going to show you a couple things here. The last Bitcoin cycle, right? It came back down and touched the borderline support band, but when it went parabolic, it doesn't even care. I mean, the borderline support band just gets tracked up, but it just went parabolic. Like, it doesn't really touch it until it like collapsed down to here. It starts oscillating, and it became like a big trend change. It went back down, right? But honestly, like, it doesn't even have to go back down to test it when things go parabolic, which I think CLSK has the potential of doing later on in 2024, if not already doing it. Could that be correction? Yes. You have to know what your risk tolerances are. You have to know that, hey, if I buy it here, am I going to be okay if it drops down to 15.5? Hey, if I buy it here, am I going to be okay if it drops down all the way down to like 11.5? Am I going to be okay with that? If the answer is no, then don't enter. If the answer is yes, then I think you just punch your ticket to something that could potentially be pretty fun over the next year or two. None of this is financial advice. Clean Spark can totally crash and burn tomorrow, and I wouldn't even know it. I would be okay though, because I still have a diversified portfolio. Clean Spark's only a few percent of my portfolio. And I also see a trend that I'm comfortable with, and I don't care about price. Again, important messages to me is, and this is not financial advice, but important message to me as a piece of wisdom that I find is that price doesn't matter, trend matters. Especially if you're trying to capture a big move over time and you're going to let time to be on your side. Price doesn't matter, trend matters. It's been over 20 minutes. Thank you for listening. Bye.